There's been a lot of disappointment for Nebraska football over the last several seasons, but it seems like they might be headed in the right direction. Is this the year that they break through? Is this a year that Nebraska could be back in the contender conversation? What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1. I'm going to give you my predictions here for the Cornhuskers in this video. Before we get into this team, into these predictions, let's just look back at the last 3 years. So I've been doing this with every team, and you can see my prediction versus the actual record. And as you can see right here, I have been overrating this team. We saw similar numbers here to these numbers with Texas A&M. I overrated Texas A&M a lot over the last 3 years, and I've done it with Nebraska. I think a lot of people have. I mean, you look at the team, you look at the roster, the talent, and you expect more, but it just hasn't been that way. I was really high on this team in 22. I had them at 9-3. They went 4-8. In 23, and, it wasn't off by much, just one game. But last year, even I thought they could get to 8-4. They went just 6-6. But this is year 3 under Matt Rule, and a lot of times we see with these coaches, when they get to that third year, they make a big jump. So we see, a slow increase. Are they going to go from 4-8 to 5-7 to 6-6, maybe 7-5 this year? Or are they going to make a big jump? Are they going to get to 9-3 or 10-2 and possibly even be in that playoff conversation? I'll tell you what, I really like the way the schedule sets up for this Nebraska team. A lot of their big games at home, so I think that bodes well for them. Before we get into the schedule, I'm just going to give you my thoughts on this team, just kind of going through each position and everything. So obviously it starts with the quarterback. Dylan Raiola, how good is he going to be this year? I think he was very solid, for a freshman last year, but needs to take some strides forward. Could he be one of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten this year? Absolutely. But it's yet to be seen, though. So we'll see how that plays out. Running back room maybe not quite as loaded as what they've had in the past, but I tell you what, these wide receivers look really, really good. Love the additions in the transfer portal. So I think that is this is probably going to be the best group of wide receivers that Nebraska has had in, a long time. I really feel that way. And I think the offensive line is going to be very, very strong as well. So overall, this team has a chance to have one of the better offenses that Nebraska's had in a very long time. On defense, I think they'll be solid. Defensive line, maybe not great, but solid. And I think linebacker secondary should be pretty good. So I think this will be overall a solid defense and an offense that, again, should be one of the better offenses that Nebraska's had in quite some time. So yes, I do think the pieces are there. And again, when you look at the schedule, you got Michigan at home, you've got USC at home, you got Iowa at home. So 3 of the bigger games all at home. I really think that gives Nebraska a chance to be in that playoff conversation. But I think it all starts with this first game, and I think this first game is going to set the tone for the entire season. If this is the Nebraska team of old, they're going to lose to Cincinnati. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, don't be shocked if Nebraska loses to Cincinnati. But if they have taken those strides forward and Matt Rule's finally got things going like he wants, I think they should be able to win this game. But just breaking it down, this is a Cincinnati team that I believe is really being overlooked. I think Cincinnati's actually going to be pretty good. Possibly middle of the pack in the Big 12 this year. Not a contender in the Big 12, but middle of the pack. When you look at the Cincinnati team, they've got some pieces coming back. They've got one of the best 1-2 running back punches in all of college football. They're really good there. Some other areas where this is going to be a very solid team. They're not bad at the line of scrimmage. It's not like Nebraska's going to go in there and just push them around. So I think it'll be a pretty close game. I think it'll be a lower scoring game. I think both defenses will play well. I do think the playmakers for Nebraska will come through in this one. I think this team is just slightly better. Again, if it's a mental game, I don't know if I'm picking Nebraska, but I think just the talent on the field, they do have the advantage. It's going to be enough, but I think this will be a very close game. I think people are going to be surprised with how close this game is. Not because Nebraska is going to be worse than you think, but I think it's because Cincinnati is going to be better than you think. And I do believe they'll have a chance. But yeah, if Cincinnati wins, you can come back to this video and I mentioned it, that Cincinnati has a real shot in this game. I'm not going to pick them, but I think they could win, and I wouldn't be surprised really at all if Cincinnati won this game. But I'm going to go with Nebraska. I have to make a decision here, and I'm going with the Cornhuskers. And then I think Akron, HCU should be easy wins. So 3-0 start for them before playing Michigan on September 20th. This should be a great game. Very evenly matched game, in my opinion. Home field advantage obviously is going to be big here for Nebraska in a big game like this. I think it's the Nebraska defense though that could be the difference here. I think that their secondary, they can take away any real threat Michigan might have through the air, which I think Michigan's still going to be limited a little bit throwing the football, and I think they force this Michigan offense to be one-dimensional. And I think that's going to be a problem, because I think if Nebraska can load up against the run, Michigan's really going to struggle to score and move the football in this game. So I think Nebraska's defense will be the difference. I think their playmakers on offense will be enough to score some points. Again, I think it's a lower scoring game. I think Nebraska at home gets a huge win over Michigan. And at this point, if you're 4-0, you got to win over Michigan. The hype is starting to build here for a very special season going into the bye week. You come out of that bye week with Michigan State at home. I think this could be the worst team in the Big Ten this year, or at least bottom 3. I'm not high on Michigan State, so I think Nebraska will roll there. Then you got a road game at Maryland. Yeah, it's a road game, so it's not a gimme win, but I don't think Maryland's going to be very good. I think Nebraska just really better across the board, so I think they win that game. And then you've got a tricky game on the road at Minnesota. Short week. This is a Friday night game. So they're going to travel out to Maryland and then have to go on the road to Minnesota on a short week. That is not what you want when you're looking at a schedule. Again, we talked about Michigan, USC, Iowa being at home. Some things definitely play into their favor, but this does not. This is going to be very tough. It's going to be a pretty good Minnesota team. Quarterback, I'm a little bit concerned about what we're going to get from the quarterback position for this Minnesota team. But if you look at the rest of the team, I mean, they've got some playmakers at running back and wide receiver. I think they've got some guys that can really make plays and possibly be the difference. Sometimes one or two special plays can make a difference in a game like this. We know what Minnesota's going to want to do. They're going to want to use the clock, slow this game down, keep it low scoring. I think they'll do just that. And playing at home on a Friday night after Nebraska just came off of a road game, give me Minnesota. I think Minnesota upsets Nebraska. They give them their first loss of the season and drop them to 6-1. Then you've got Northwestern October 25th. This could be another tough game. I think Northwestern, people think I'm crazy apparently, but I really believe Northwestern is going to be an improved team this year, significantly better than what they were last year. And so I think it's a close game. Just look in the trenches. I think these teams match up pretty evenly. I think Northwestern's going to have a really good offensive and defensive line. At the end of the day, though, I think the secondary for Nebraska, the linebackers, they win the battle against these running backs and wide receivers from Northwestern. It's close, but I think Nebraska makes some plays. Northwestern can't quite make those plays, and Nebraska wins at home. But don't be surprised if this one is very close. That's going to be a good one in my opinion. Then you got USC November 1st. These are, when we look at games this year, trying to predict games, this is possibly the most even matchup in the country. I mean, you look at these two rosters, you look at these two teams, they're very even. Nebraska does have an advantage on the offensive line, but USC, I think, I say this when just comparing the rosters. Nebraska's offensive line, I think, is better than USC's. But USC's defensive line, I think, is going to be better than Nebraska's defensive line. So it's strength on strength when Nebraska's on offense of the line of scrimmage. And maybe, I don't want to say weakness, but maybe not as strong when you look at USC's offensive line versus Nebraska's defensive line. So that's interesting. Both teams going to have very good secondaries, solid at linebacker, playmakers at wide receiver. I mean, it's just a really even matchup here. You could just flip a coin. I mean, this game could go either way, and you guys know, usually when that's the case, I'm going with the home team. I'm going with Nebraska to get this one over Nebraska. I think it's to get this one over USC, I should say. I think it's going to be very close, but I do like the Cornhuskers to win this game. Then you got to go out west to UCLA, and we've seen teams, struggle with this travel situation to the Big Ten. We saw it last year. I think coming off of a big win, this is just one you could slip up and lose. I'm going with UCLA to pull off the upset. I don't know how good this UCLA team is going to be, but I think they're good enough that they could pull off an upset this year, and I think this is the game. I think UCLA upsets Nebraska at home, and that's going to drop them to 8-2, so you can't lose another game at this point if you want to make the college football playoff. But unfortunately, they've got Penn State next on the road after a bye week. I just don't see Nebraska winning this game. Penn State way too much. I got the Nittany Lions. A fairly close game, but I think it's at least a 2-score win for Penn State. And then they close things out with Iowa on a Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving, another short week after a road game. Again, this schedule, that area of the schedule is a little bit tougher, but I just look at these two teams, and Nebraska should be the better team this year, in my opinion. And I think their offensive playmakers are going to have a big day against this Iowa defense. I think this is a back end. The back end of this Iowa defense, I think, is going to be one of the worst that we've seen in some time. When I look at the secondary, when I look at the linebackers, I think they're going to struggle. And I think Nebraska's playmakers will have a big, big day. I think Nebraska wins this game, and they finish 9-3. Probably not enough to get into the college football playoff, but at least put you in that conversation, especially losing 3 games in the second half of the season. That's going to make it tough. But I'm telling you, if they lose to Cincinnati, they could lose to Michigan. They could lose to Northwestern. They could lose to USC. And I mean, it's Iowa. You could lose that game. So this could easily be another one of those seasons for Nebraska where they're 5-7 or 6-6. That would not shock me. But I just feel like in year 3 under Matt Rule, they're going to get it together. They're going to finally play with some confidence. I love the additions in the transfer portal. I think it's going to be enough to push them to a much better season. We'll find out. Again, I've overrated them the last 3 years. Did I do it again? I'd love to know what you guys think. Give me your thoughts on this team, your comments down below. But just like with Nebraska, just like with Texas A&M, a lot of the times when I had overrated them in the past, it was a different coaching staff. And now in year 3 under Matt Rule, that's, like I said, that's when it comes together for a lot of programs. And I think that might be the case. So a favorable schedule in a lot of ways with some big games at home. And year 3 under Matt Rule, I just think it all comes together with these additions. The transfer portal, it's enough to get them to 9-3. But yeah, give me your thoughts, your predictions on Nebraska down in the comments below.